Cerebrospinal fluid. It is also known as CSF. Introduction. Cerebrospinal fluid or CSF is a clear, colorless, and transparent fluid that circulates throughout ventricles of brain, subarachnoid space, and central canal or spinal cord. It is a part of extracellular fluid. Composition of cerebrospinal fluid. The cerebrospinal fluid is made up of water and solids. Water comprises of 99.13% and solids comprises of 0.87%. Properties of and composition of cerebrospinal fluid. Properties: volume 150 ml, rate of formation 0.3 ml per minute, specific gravity 1.005, reaction alkaline. Composition. Since CSF is a part of extracellular fluid, it contains more amount of sodium than potassium. CSF also contains some lymphocytes. CSF secreted by ventricle do not contain many cells. Lymphocytes are added when extracellular fluid flows in the spinal cord. Formation of cerebrospinal fluid. Site of formation. CSF is formed by choroid plexus situated within the ventricles. Choroid plexus are tuft of capillary projections present inside the ventricles and are collected by pia mater, epidermal covering. A large amount of CSF is found in the lateral ventricles. Mechanism of formation. CSF is formed by the process of secretion that involves active transportation mechanism. Formation of CSF does not involve ultrafiltration or dialysis. Circulation of cerebrospinal fluid. Measure quality of CSF formed in lateral ventricles and enters third ventricle by passing through foramen of Monro. From here, it passes to fourth ventricle through aqueductus salvus. From fourth ventricle, CSF enters the cisterna magna and cisterna lateralis through foramen of Magendie and foramen of Laskaska, lateral opening. Absorption of cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is mostly absorbed by the arachnoid villi into dura sinuses and spinal veins. Small amount of absorbed along the perineural space into cervical lymphatics and into the perivascular spaces. Pressure extended by cerebrospinal fluid. Pressure extended by cerebrospinal fluid in man varies in different position. In lateral recommended position 10 to 18 cm H2O, lying position 13 cm of H2O, and in sitting position 30 cm of H2O. Functions of cerebrospinal fluid. Protective function. CSF acts as fluid buffer and protects the brain from shock. Since the specific gravity of brain in CSF is more or less same, brain floats in CSF. When head receives a blood, CSF acts like cushion and prevents the movement of brain against the skull bone and thereby prevents the damage of brain. Regulation of cranial content volume. Regulation of cranial content volume is essential because brain may be affected if the volume of cranial content increases. It happens in cerebral hemorrhage and brain tumors. Medium of exchange. CSF is the medium through which many substances, particularly nutritive substances and waste materials, are exchanged between blood and brain tissues. Collection of cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is collected either by cisternal puncture or lumbar puncture. In cisternal puncture, the CSF is collected by passing a needle between the occipital bone and atlas so that it enters cisterna magna. In lumbar puncture, the lumbar puncture needle is introduced in subarachnoid space in lumbar region between the third and fourth lumbar spine. Blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier or BBB. It is a neuroprotective structure that prevents the entry of many substances and pathogens into the brain tissues from blood. Structure of blood-brain barrier. Tight junction in the endothelial cells of brain capillaries are responsible of blood-brain barrier mechanism. Function of blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier acts as both a mechanical barrier and transport mechanism. It prevents potentially harmful chemical substances and prevents metabolic and essential materials into the brain tissues. Blood cerebrospinal fluid barrier. Blood cerebrospinal fluid barrier is the barrier between blood and cerebrospinal fluid that exists at a choroid plexus. The function of this barrier is similar to the blood-brain barrier. It does not allow the movement of many substances from blood to cerebrospinal fluid. It allows the movement of only those substances which are allowed by blood-brain barrier. Applied physiology. Hydrocephalus. Abnormal accumulation of CSF in the skull associated with enlargement of head is called hydrocephalus. During obstruction of any foramen through which CSF escape, the ventricular cavity dilates and this condition is called internal hydrocephalus. It is also known as non-communicating hydrocephalus. So it is all about cerebrospinal fluid.